This is our 2020 Ford F250 Super Duty, affectionately known as DONKI, and we are going to be selling it. So today in this video we're going to do a full walkthrough, show you everything that we've done to this truck, what it is, what it's not, and hopefully if you don't have one of these and you want one, you buy ours. But if not, maybe you have some ideas of stuff you want to do to your Super Duty. Let's get started. Under the hood, we have the 6.2 liter naturally aspirated V8 engine that produces 385 horsepower, 430 pound-feet of torque. And this is a fantastic engine. It's probably underrated because it is so boring and reliable and just works. But everybody gives all the glory and credit to the diesel engine, but this is the one to own if you just want something that's a workhorse. And it's got a great track record with Ford for, well, since 2010, and it was also used in the first generation Raptor. Highly recommend, no issues with 40,000 miles on it, and it still has a pretty respectable tow rating of around 15,000 pounds, depending on how it's equipped. No complaints, great choice. Now, otherwise under the hood, we do have an upgraded battery, which is an Odyssey Performance AGM battery, and this replaced the standard lead acid battery. It is so much better, especially if you have time between running the truck. If it sits for a week or two, it starts right up really fast. It works really good with high load draw, like with the winch. We also ran a 1 gauge wire with a 100 amp fuse from the battery to the back of the truck. There's a video on that with Anderson connector, so it is used to charge our truck camper, but it also could be used for other accessories because it's just a standard Anderson plug, so it gives you power at the back of the truck. Definitely check out that video. Now on this side we have a replacement reservoir for the power steering. This is a PSC reservoir. We actually just installed this. It has the most jiggy, cool CNC cut designed bracket for this pump that was custom done, and it is amazing, really cool, rather expensive, but it uses all the factory mounting points for this reservoir, rock solid, and it gives us into the feed for the stock power steering pump, and so it uses the stock hoses, but then the idea is that it basically is sealed better. The factory canister, ever since we had the PSC put in almost 4 years ago, it would slowly kind of get oil vapors out the lid because the lid really wasn't sealed all that well, and so just have residual down the container, and then it kind of get oil down the hoses, and we kind of just lived with it because it was so little oil. We really didn't even have to add any to it, maybe except for once a year. So this though is a really good fully sealed system. It has a proper vent hose and then a pressure regulator for it, so it can release pressure as needed, but you're not dealing with the fluid escaping or vapors or any of that stuff. It was an expensive upgrade, but it was one of the only annoying things we had with the truck, and we just wanted to do it the way I wanted to do it from the beginning and just didn't do. So this is a really cool upgrade that we just finished on the truck. Over here we have 2 air compressors. These are ARB compressors, and they're both labeled, so ARB1, ARB2. This first ARB compressor actually runs the front air locker, which is an aux air locker, and we have a whole video on that, so check that out. Basically, it's air actuated, but it also has this ability to manually actuate the front locker if your air compressor failed. We went with 2 air compressors for redundancy, but also allowed us to easily be able to fill both the passenger tires and the driver tires at the same time. So my wife will run one of the air lines and air hoses, and I'll run the other one. So we do have 2 air up kits that will come with the truck, so you can simultaneously air up 2 tires at once, and it gives you redundancy if you ever had a failure. Really cool system. I haven't seen anyone else do this like this, but these are also hooked to the factory auxiliary switches, which we have a video on that as well, so check that out. But it makes it really slick and seamless to run these compressors, and they're actually run straight off of the factory wiring. Really cool setup. On the front of the truck, we keep the paint really nice. Every year we're using paint sealant on it, and for the most part it's always parked inside unless we're traveling. So it's kept all of the paintwork really good, all the plastic work. You can see the headlights don't have any fade to them. They're not sun or UV damaged. Really nice. Now the only damage we actually have on this truck was from our bear incident, which if you watch your truck camper video, we mention it in that video, but we will possibly do a full video on that. But we actually had a bear climb on the hood of the truck. So there is a dent right here on the hood. And I thought about replacing the hood, but I couldn't find a nice used replacement. And then the new replacements, I really didn't want to deal with having paint work done on the truck because it's all original paint, and I just like that. So I guess it has patina. It didn't break through the paint, it just has a dent, which isn't that noticeable because it's so tall, but it is there. Now on the front, otherwise we did spray paint the Ford badge because it was so big and ugly, and then we've got a rough country light bar. I think it's rated for 36,000 lumens of light. It's a curved bar. It almost follows the grill perfectly. We do have a video showing all of our lights, so check that out. I'll post that above. Our other lights are all Baja Designs. So this is the XL80s, and I think these are 9,500 lumens each. Glass faces, really nice reflectors. These are the Baja Squadron, and these are SAE rated light, so you can't run them, they're road legal. So they're amber, so they're really great in the fog. Now how we have those set up, we talk about that in the other video, but we have them all wired to the overhead auxiliary switches. So the switch turns on the fog lights, and when the fog lights are on and you turn on your high beam lights, then your driving lights come on, so the XL80s. So if you don't want these driving lights on and you're using your brights, then you want to turn off your fogs. So it makes it really fast, because if you're driving on the back roads, you don't want to be just blasting people with light, and it's much quicker to turn on and off your bright beams and have these tied to it. These factory lights are just the standard halogens, which are absolutely dismal, terrible, and these lights really do a fantastic job to supplement and bring it so it illuminates it really, really well. This light bar is on its own switch as well. It does have a cover to it because it's not legal in California to go without the cover on the highway. And it's really only good for back roads where you're knowing that you're going to be alone and turn this thing on, it lights up like daylight. The bumper here is a worn Assent steel winch bumper. And so this thing's been really nice. I know some people have talked about, oh, you know, it sticks out, you know, whatever, 10 inches, or I don't know how much from the front grill here. And I thought originally, well, that's kind of a downside to it. But since owning this truck, that's my favorite feature, because this truck is tall. I mean, you can't even check the oil without having something to stand on. This is the best standing platform to get into the engine bay. So I highly recommend, if you have a big truck, get a bumper that's big enough to stand on, because it's almost impossible to do any work on it otherwise. The winch on here is a Smittybilt. I think this one's the X2o, and it's, I think, a 12,000 pound rated winch. And we've got a video on this guy as well. It's got a safety thimble, nice aluminum fairlead. We also switched out the winch attachment to the drum, which is really the only shortcoming we've had with this winch. And it can pull free, so we did a whole video on that. Synthetic line on it. It is a wireless remote control for it. They just work, you know. I think Warren finally got on board and started their VR series of winches that are now made in China, same as Smittybilt. I don't like China-made things, but as far as China-made things, this does work really well. Underneath the truck, we have upgraded the steering, which we did not do a video on, but we put it on this summer, which is Apex heavy-duty tie rod and drag link, and they are beefy, so beefy that I can't even wrap my fingers all the way around that tie rod. And it's so big that the PSC steering system, this clamp, we had to have custom machined to meet the diameter. Now this PSC steering system, we have a video on, so check that out, but it basically acts as additional steering force and steering damping. So this essentially is distributing the steering load between your tie rod and your steering gearbox, which is fantastic for off-road because you can one finger steer it, even with it fully in four-wheel drive on hard surfaces. Massive improvement. If you're running the stock system, you know how hard it is to steer the truck, and you're putting a ton of stress on that steering box and the factory steering system. Now with this system, it is so big that we couldn't fit the Fox ATS steering stabilizer we had previously installed, which we have a video on, and we haven't really missed it because this steering is just so much more robust and it's just solid, and the PSC works great with it. Huge fan of it, big upgrade, super happy with it. We also have under here the Carly track bar, which is beefy, heavy duty, and it's great for keeping that shimmy out of the front end. You know, everybody talks about death wobble, whatever. The problem with death wobble is you have undersized components or worn components, and you essentially are putting too much stress on it. So it's just basically wiggling all your weak parts on your truck or worn out parts. If you have really heavy duty parts and you keep your parts well maintained, you're not going to experience that. We've never experienced that in 40,000 miles. And so anyways, just something to keep in mind. Otherwise, we've got the aux air locker, which is air actuated. Also, you can remove that and actuate it manually if you need to, if your air system failed. It has a nice heavy duty cover, and it has the factory Ford 430 thick cut axle gears, which are the perfect ratio for the 37-inch tires, and they're extremely heavy duty. Great option on this truck, and the speedometer is dead on with the 37s, which is also really nice. For wheels and tires, we replaced these tires this summer. We have a video on that. These are the Toyo RT Trails in a 37 12.5 17, and they are a load E-rated tire, which was really cool. It is neat to see a 37 spec 17-inch tire in a load E rating. They also have a 3-ply sidewall, which is great. So these are pretty low mileage and really a nice tire, very durable, and have a lot of weight capacity. I think they're rated right around 4,000 pounds load per tire. The wheel here is a Method 701 bead grip wheel, which basically helps hold the tire bead at low pressures from coming off on both inside and outside of the wheel. These are a fantastic wheel. We have not had any problems with the tire coming debeaded from it. It takes a lot of extra force. As a matter of fact, the tire shops hate taking the tires off of these because it's more difficult. But they've worked really well for this truck, and they're an 8.5-inch wide wheel. Now, we also have the factory Ford hubs, which are a air and manually actuated hub. Everybody calls these hubs incorrectly front locker. Okay, it's not. It's a hub, which means if you have it unlocked in the auto position, it will not spin all your front end drivetrain. So that's great. It helps with fuel mileage, less wear and tear on all of your front componentry, from your CVs to your drive shaft to your axle gears. Really nice, because realistically, I think Ford is the only one that offers this. But it's also air actuated, so if you didn't want to get out of the truck, you can actually shift on the fly into 4-wheel drive. It will automatically lock in, and you're off to the races. Super nice. I love it. It works great. No issues with it, and it's just a good system. So this is based on the Dana 60 high pinion axle. So that's what is installed in here. Ford does not produce the Dana axle, as some people think. It is Dana Spicer that made the front axle, and it's a high pinion axle. So it's a great, probably one of the best front axles that you can get for a heavy duty truck, and Ford's still using these hubs, makes it even better. And then with the low gears and the air locker, I mean, it's really dialed. It's super nice. Suspension, we have a whole video on suspension, so check that out. But we are still running the Fox 2.5 Resi shocks that have dual compression and dual speed adjustment, so it's high and low speed adjustment on it. They are custom valved by Accutune for the weight of the truck, And we have stainless steel braided brake line for the front and rear of the truck. And we have a video also showing us rebuilding and revalving these shocks. So they are very low mileage on this current revalve and rebuild. So working great, love these things. Nothing bad to say at all about them. It works super great. We went with the diesel springs from Carly. I think they are rated for 2.5 or 3.5 inches of lift because we have all the extra weight with the winch and the steel winch bumper up off the front of it. So I think it's a good match, especially when we put the truck camper on with the extra weight it's putting on the front axle with that extra weight we added. It rides amazing with the truck camper on here, which is how this whole suspension was designed, was for the loaded weight of the truck. Now when the truck is unloaded, you can turn the shock valving down for high and low speed compression, which does help with the ride quality, but it rides, you know, firm as you'd expect with it empty because it's made to haul a 3,000 pound load in the back of it. If you have at least 500 to 1,000 pounds load in it, it rides, I would say, good. But for it to ride great, you really have to have, you know, more load on it. When it's empty, it just rides very firm. Now coming down the side of the truck, we did replace the windshield because it got a crack in it from a rock that fell down. And that is a factory Ford OEM windshield because I hate aftermarket glass. So this is just put in recently. Otherwise, all the paintwork and bodywork is all original. It's in really good shape. It does have light pinstriping, which, you know, could be taken out with a good detailer, wet polish and buff and whatnot. But I mean, you can't tell unless you're less than 2 feet away on it, and it still looks beautiful and shiny. So we leave it because we use the truck. That's the whole point of it. So if you're gonna buy it, you need to use it. Coming down the side here, we do have ceramic tint on the windows, front and back. I can post up the details on that. We also have custom rock sliders, which are welded to the frame, and they also function as a step. So they come out far enough that they resemble and they function the same as basically a side step, which is fantastic. But you can also smash them on rocks and pivot around trees and do whatever you want and not bust up your doors. So they do come out further than a lot of rock sliders because we do want side protection on the truck if you're actually using off-road. If you want to see some of the videos of us going off-road with it, check out some of our other off-road videos. We also have at the end of the rock slider a camper tie-down mount. So this allows you to secure your camper directly to the rock slider, which is super convenient. Coming to the back here, same wheels and tires, obviously. The springs are a Deaver custom leaf pack that is basically designed for somewhere around 3 to 3.5 inches of lift with a 3,000 pound load in the back. And they're a progressive rate spring pack, and they ride like butter when you're loaded. I mean, you can go through Death Valley and just 60 miles an hour on a back road and just, it's just amazing. I mean, just stuff that you wouldn't even think is possible with such a big, heavy rig. And when we're fully loaded, you know, it's pushing over 10,000 pounds, so it's not lightweight rig, but with right suspension, right tuning, it works super well. We have the Carly bump stop replacement with the drop on there, and then let's go underneath the truck and we'll take a look at the underside. In the back, we have the Sterling 10.5 inch axle, and it has the factory 430 ring gears just like the front, and it also has the factory electronic locker, and that is the best option in the world. If you're buying one of these Super Duty trucks, you got to check that box because it is inexpensive and functions so good. It's fast, and it can operate in 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. Any of you Toyota guys know what I'm talking about because Toyota only lets you lock in your rear differential in 4-wheel drive low. Well, this you can lock in 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive low, and we've even locked it in while we're moving. Yeah, beat that, Toyota. We also have a heavy-duty steel fabricated differential cover, so that allows you to smash on a rock and not go home with your ring gears welded together because you lost all your oil and you overheated. So that's really nice. We also chopped the shock mounts about 2 inches. Now the shock mounts are probably the only thing I really disliked about this on this truck because they hung down so low. It was basically almost even with the bottom of the differential. And we'd snag trees on it and all sorts of stuff. Terrible design. It's basically like towing a boat anchor behind your truck. So we basically got them chopped, reinforced, and then we got Fox shocks to match the front. They're 2.5-inch reservoir shocks, but they're stock length shocks, so they provide the proper travel with the shock mount being chopped, which is super great. We also have stainless steel braided brake line back here, and otherwise the drivetrain is really stock. So we also have the stock drive shafts, and they work flawlessly, which is super nice. Underneath us, we have a full-size 37-inch spare tire in the factory position. We have a video on this. It's probably one of the more popular videos, and people who say you can't do it, well, they're wrong, because well, it's right here. And people who say that the factory mount can't support it, they're wrong, because it's been here for 4 years, and it has the same exact rim wheel as we have on the rest of the truck, and it is more than strong enough for doing off-roading or whatever else you want to do. Fantastic. Dodge can't do that, so Ford, extra plus. Let's keep going. In the back, we have the factory tailgate, which spent most of its time in storage because we had the truck camper on it a lot of the time. And we added a replacement camera for backup camera on this mount above the license plate that ties into the factory harness with the factory harness connector. And so this allows you to have the backup camera if you have a truck camper or the tailgate off the truck. Also, you can plug in this backup camera if you want to. It also has the auto locking tailgate. It operates with the remote door locks on the truck. Otherwise, down here we have the standard factory wiring for the trailer 7-pin. This bumper is a Warren Assent bumper, matches the front bumper. Probably one of my favorite features is this cut-in side step. This is the best way to get into the truck bed because you can just grab the side rail, grab here, step right up. We also welded on these mounts for the camper tie downs, so that works really well. So you don't have to have additional frame mounted tie downs. These lights are the Baja Designs Squadron Sport wide cornering lights, which these are wired to an auxiliary switch, which we have a video on that. And they work fantastic if you're backing up at night or you just need to illuminate a campsite or off-road or whatever. Just flip them on. In the truck bed, we have the factory optioned bed mat, which is a rubber mat, and you can see we've had it in since factory brand new, so the truck bed is completely scratch free. We did do a cutout in it for the camper tie downs, which we have a video on. These are aluminum welded to the aluminum bed, and they basically help keep the camper from shifting when you're off-road, because anyone who off-roads a truck camper knows they will move around on you. So it keeps it in place, and it allows the camper tie downs to not change tension because the camper's shifting. And then in the front, we actually taper the mounts so it helps with loading the camper because it kind of guides the camper in off of the wheel well. And then in the front, we have a stopper point for the camper so it rests against this front mount when the camper is loaded. That way, if you're going down a steep hill or you're loading the camper, whatever, you have a stationary spot, a stopper for the camper to sit up against. And then on the front here, this somewhat hidden looking white box is a fuel tank. So this is a custom built fuel tank. We have a video showing the details on this, but it's aluminum fuel tank. It's pressure tested, all that fun stuff. Really cool. It was built by a boat builder or a boat tank builder in Florida. And I basically drew out all the designs for this tank and they constructed it. But essentially it only loses 3 inches of bed space. and it sits flush with the top rail of the truck, but it allows us to carry an additional 21 gallons of fuel. And this is a game changer. I mean, really, you need fuel for range, and especially if you're hauling a load. Your fuel mileage, you know, if it's getting 10 or 12 miles a gallon, you're just not gonna go that far on the factory tank, which is a 34-gallon tank. So this transforms it. I mean, it gives us up to 55 gallons of fuel, total capacity. So really about 50 gallons of usable, and has a rollover valve here that we use for a vent. And then on the other side is just a standard filler, which you can lock it in place with a padlock. And then if you want to hook a pump up to it, it does have a port and a hose that runs down there. And we have just used gravity feed with a shaker siphon, and thought of this more or less as a fuel container like a jerry can. It's just a really big jerry can. So we use the shaker siphon to transfer fuel. But you could hook up a pump if you wanted to. We just wanted something simple, reliable, and would just work. So this has been fantastic to have. You do have to be a little bit careful with it if you're filling it. If you go all the way up, you know, within like an inch of the top of it, it really has no room for fuel expansion. So what you want to do is transfer fuel off of it within, you know, the first, you know, 30 minutes of driving or so, just to get the more air volume for expansion in the tank. Once it's down 3 or 4 inches, you're pretty much good, and it doesn't matter if you're at angles or anything else like that. So typically if we're going for maximum range, we'll fill everything up to the absolute brim, and then probably 30 minutes later, pull off to the side of the road, transfer in, you know, 2 or 3 gallons, and then we have our maximum range as far as we can go. The back window on this truck is just a solid piece of glass, which I think is the most elegant, beautiful way of doing a back window. It does not open. That's what you got air conditioning for. Come on, people. And it's tinted like all the other windows. See, the roof is really good shape. It has these little antenna port thingies. Coming around the side, it looks just like the other side. Imagine that. Paint and everything is really glossy still. It looks really nice. We try to keep good care of it. We do use our stuff, but we are extremely careful with our stuff, and we do spend the time to clean up afterwards, you know, do a paint protectant. We store our stuff inside. All that stuff makes a difference in longevity. I think this is one of those trucks that you could own for 30 years, and it would just be a workhorse truck. It's simple enough, but modern enough to be comfortable. So this is a great generation of truck. You know, still basic fuel, port injection, not direct injection. It's got the simplicity factor and just the basic reliability. Now this is also a super cab, which I call an extended cab. So this cab is basically, you know, a suicide style rear door. So when you open it, you have to have the front door open. But the door doesn't just open to a 90 like Toyota, because Toyota also doesn't know how to make a door open further. It opens all the way, which gives you a massive entry into the truck. Now, we have a video showing our mountain bike rack for the truck, and we can include that with the truck or not. This is the factory seat. We basically removed the factory seat probably in the first 2 weeks that we had the truck. So it's basically been wrapped up in plastic ever since it's been brand new. But these factory seats are actually pretty nice. They lock up separate, you know, one side versus the other. The seat back does fold down, so you can actually get additional storage behind the seat for every little nook and cranny. And when the seat's folded up, you have quite a floor width here. And you can see that the space in here isn't bad. This is basically the front seat mostly all the way back. My knees are touching, but I'm 6 foot tall, lots of headroom, and I mean, so much room compared to the truck my grandparents used to have us ride around in. Those things were tiny and we weren't even that big. Now, when Ford revamped this truck in 2017, they actually made the Super Cab bigger. So the 2016 trucks were tiny. You know, nobody could really fit back there well. Now, this 2017 Plus version of the truck received a increase similar to the size of what the previous crew cab truck was. And then the new generation crew cab just got humongous. It's so big, which is nice. Don't get me wrong, I like the big size of the back seat for this, but this does work plenty fine for even adults and is plenty comfortable. So the advantage with the smaller cab is two things. One is I love this suicide door because you don't have that pillar coming down here, so it's so much easier to get access into the truck. And the second thing is the wheelbase, and that's really the primary thing, because getting the wheelbase shorter is not just for off-roading, for breakover angle and all this. It's for just driving it around town. Like, think of pulling into a parking space and needing to turn, or loading a trailer, or anything maneuvering. These trucks, well, let's face it, they're just terrible turning radius. And the shorter your wheelbase is, the better it's going to turn. This is, I think, the near perfect wheelbase and maneuverability for an HD full-size truck. Now, we did have the crew cab truck originally. If you watch one of our first videos we ever did, was this basically exact truck, but in a crew cab version. And it was so bad that we ordered this truck custom. So we sought after this version of the truck. And for people who haven't driven it, they don't know what they're missing, because it makes all the difference dropping 12 inches off of the wheelbase. So love that, super nice. Otherwise, you can pull up around here. These are the standard tow mirrors. They have the turn signals built into them. We never run them out because all of our trailers are 7 foot wide, so they provide great visibility. I love the lower kind of rounded mirror for towing. Makes it super great. You can see down the whole side of it really well. And they are powered and they are heated. We also added the little stubby antenna because we don't use the radio. I mean, who uses the radio? But it's a lot nicer, more compact, and that's about it. We put new windshield wipers on it just recently. We're in Arizona, but they basically just wore out probably from just being 4 years old. So put new windshield wipers on it. Let's take a look inside and see the rest of the truck. Now, on the inside of the truck, we custom ordered this how we want and how we think every truck should be. First of all, it has vinyl seats. And this vinyl is not your grandparents' vinyl. This is vinyl is more similar to leather than it is vinyl. It feels very, very extremely similar, with one difference. It's not a pain in the butt to maintain like leather. This is easy to clean like leather, but it doesn't crack out, and you don't have to put stuff on it all the time. Now, we have put sealant and protectant on it, but it just holds up so much better. I love the vinyl interior on this thing. It's the best option. I mean, followed by the floor. So this has vinyl flooring. Now, if you're gonna get a truck, you don't want carpet. Carpet sucks. It is a pain in the butt to clean, and what a hassle. Anyways, I love the vinyl flooring. It's still insulated. People think that it's not. It totally has the same insulation as the carpet. It just has vinyl, so you can wipe it off instead of having to use a bunch of carpet cleaner and have stains that you live with for the rest of the time you own the truck. We added these floor liners to the truck, and they have really good coverage all the way around, so when you do get dirt inside, you can more or less just dump them out. They are essential for any truck, because if you don't have them with the vinyl flooring, you will wear your flooring out. You can wear a hole through your flooring, same as carpet. So these do give you a lot more protection, make it easier to clean. Super great option. Otherwise, it has the standard glove box, has the factory manual, the proper glove box, and we store our winch parts in there. It also has the 12-volt socket adapter, which we put a high-powered little USB-C adapter. It has the factory power inverter, which is a 400-watt power inverter. We have the mount for the RAM mount. and we have a whole video on that, so check it out. So it's how we hold our tablet in place for navigation off-road, which is fantastic. I know a lot of these newer trucks are getting bigger and bigger screens. You just can't touch what a tablet can do performance-wise, and for the fact that you can take it out, put it back in your truck. And I think our tablet is like a 14-inch screen or something like that. It's huge, it's flexible, love it for navigation, and it fits right here, so you're basically not in the way of opening the glove box or the HVAC controls from the driver's side, which is super nice. We have more USB power ports down here. There's a little miniature storage cubby there, and then the factory connections here, which also connect into the radio if you want to control your navigation through Google or whatever on the radio. This is the not the huge screen. I try to remember what the size of it is. I'll post it in up above. But I love this dash integration and layout because it's still a dash. It's not a freaking, you know, TV screen you're driving down the road. I like shutting off the screen when I drive. I don't like always looking at stupid screens. So I like it. It is plenty big enough for doing your navigation, for doing whatever radio stuff you want to do. But it's not obtrusive, and it still looks like a vehicle dash should look. I like this. This is really nice. Four-wheel drive. They basically switched so you could no longer get the shift lever for your four-wheel drive, so it is electronically actuated transfer case going between 2 high, 4 low, and you pull it out to lock in the differential. Factory integrated brake controller, fantastic, works great. The other option that we got, which we love, there's a video on this, is the auxiliary switches. These are a game changer, and we have every one of these switches actually in use. So we have the fog light, the LED light bar, the rear LED lights, the front air locker, and air compressor 1, air compressor 2. And they're all labeled, so it's super easy to use. Oh, that's the best feature. I just love it. So otherwise, in the front here, we have a scan gauge too that sits Velcroed onto the top of the cowling here. And that basically allows you to monitor any of the provisions that the OBD2 allows you to see. So it could be anything from fuel mileage, coolant temp, transmission temp. We typically monitor the actual coolant temperature to the degree, the trans temp, and sometimes we monitor fuel mileage. You also can monitor engine load. Really slick device. It also allows you to monitor or check engine codes if you ever get any. Thankfully, we've never had a check engine light, which, you know, some people knock Ford. I've been a Toyota guy my whole life, but I'll tell you, we had a Toyota Tacoma that's a year newer than this, and it had a check engine light while we owned it. It wasn't a big deal, but Ford did not. I'm just saying. So otherwise, tilt steering wheel, and it's got the basic analog dash, which is fantastic. Where did all the needles go, people? You know, it's all we need to see anyways. Why do we want to see a huge screen glaring in our eyes all the time? Love that. It has a small screen that will do readout for the tire pressure and show fuel mileage and all that stuff. The essential data you can see on the built-in screen. Otherwise, really simple, straightforward. Steering wheel has cruise control buttons and phone buttons and so forth. It's all standard Super Duty stuff. The little flip down visors. This side has a little mirror. So pretty straightforward. This is actually a really cool thing with this truck is that it's got the bench seat. It has the hidden storage compartment. So the seat bottom folds up and you have this huge storage place. We always stored our special items like passports in it. This seat back folds forward, so instead of it having 3 seats in the front, bam, you have a center console. We typically drove it with this mode. You have cup holders, a place for your cell phone. Super great, perfect center console. But then if you ever had an extra passenger, bam, shoulder belt, everything. We had a couple times where we carried a third person in here because we had the rear seat removed. But this is a proper 6-seater truck, which if you have a family, That's pretty great. And I love that this folds down to function into a proper, you know, center console with this storage. This is the way to buy this truck. It is usable. I think that's the best way of describing this, is just a truck that can work. And, you know, no frills, but it has everything that you need and nothing that you don't. We love this truck. It's going to be, actually, we were going to keep it and just sell our truck camper, but we kind of realized that this truck camper and truck were all really designed together and would be ideally suited together. But we kind of realized, well, if somebody wants to buy the truck, that's fine. We've already had multiple people ask about it. So kind of at this point, kind of realized that we're probably selling the truck, but it will make a great truck for somebody. We have no complaints about it. It's probably one of the best vehicles I've ever owned. So functional, and it's amazing. The capacity coming from Toyota world to an HD truck world. You don't know what you're missing out, Toyota people. That's all I got to tell you. So these trucks are fantastic. Toyota builds fine stuff, but the Super Duty line is just, it's next level. It's super heavy duty. It's amazing, the stuff you can do with it. So thanks so much for watching. If you have any interest in this truck, check out the description below. We'll have a link to the for sale ad for it. And if you have any questions about this truck or stuff you're trying to do on yours and modify it, then post up in the comments. I do respond to them, especially people who don't say mean things, because I might just delete those. Otherwise, we'll catch you on the next video. We'll show you guys the truck with the camper on it.
Thank you.